Global, you will be covering Chapter 14, Global Nutrition, Food Security, and Sustainability. Identify areas in the world where undernourishment is common, define food security, and identify the dimensions of food security. Define nutrition security and discuss how it is interrelated and interdependent with food security. Discuss the status of food security in the United States. Identify areas in the world where obesity overnutrition is prevalent. Identify factors that influence and contribute to a sustainable food system. Discuss how food selection and diet composition impact sustainability and the environment. Identify ways that consumers can improve the sustainability of their diets. Describe issues contributing to water scarcity and overall prevalence worldwide. Discuss the potential benefits and risks of genetically modified foods. Define organic and explain how the term is used on food labels. Jessica Fonzo is the director of the Global Food Ethics and Policy Program at Johns Hopkins University. She found her calling in a roundabout way. Fonzo's time in Africa rekindled her passion for food and nutrition. It was just such a profound changing experience for me to see so much farmland and so much culture and rich tradition around foods, she explains. While in Africa, she met agronomists, experts in the science of soil management and food systems. She began to understand how food systems, that is, the paths foods take from farm to table, production to consumption, ultimately shape public health. She realized that big picture questions about global nutrition were much more her style than immunology or molecular nutrition, and she began to zero in on what she felt was a hugely important question that fuels her ongoing work today. So, how can we feed the world's growing population in a safe and healthy way without unwittingly harming Earth? One of the goals of the United Nations Agenda for Sustainable Development is to eliminate hunger worldwide by 2030. Despite a gradual but consistent decline in world hunger from 2000 to 2015, the number of individuals who experience undernourishment or hunger increased by about 11% in 2016 alone. This recent increase in hunger and undernourishment creates a significant challenge towards meeting the goal of eliminated hunger by 2030 and providing food security for all individuals across the globe. The Food and Agricultural Organization FAO of the United Nations identifies 4 dimensions of food security. Availability is the adequate food production, stocks, and distribution for entire populations at the regional, national, and international levels. Access is the affordability and accessibility of food such that individual households can obtain adequate food to meet the needs of each member of the household. Utilization is the opportunity for the body to make the most efficient use of the nutrients in foods. Stability is the consistent presence of the other 3 dimensions over time so that they are not significantly affected by weather, economic factors, or political unrest. Nutrition security, which is closely related to food security, emphasizes that individuals consume and utilize the food they need rather than just having access to it. Nutrition security exists when a variety of nutrient-dense food is consistently available in sufficient quantities that meet dietary needs and food preferences to support an active and healthy life of all individuals. In addition, according to the FAO, nutrition security warrants a sanitary environment and adequate health care, along with appropriate nutrition education to promote positive food choices. The United States enjoys a high level of food security compared with many developing nations. However, a significant portion of the United States adults and children do not have consistent access to a safe, secure, nutritious, and sustainable food supply. Food insecurity exists when people lack secure access to sufficient amounts of safe and nutritious food. According to the United States Department of Agriculture, USDA, in 2016, 12.3% of head of household Americans were uncertain of having or were unable to acquire enough food to meet the needs of all the members of their household because of insufficient money or other resources for food. According to a 2017 position paper on food insecurity in the United States from the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, food insecurity is associated with negative nutritional and non-nutritional outcomes across the lifespan, including substandard academic achievement, inadequate intake of key nutrients, increased risk of chronic disease, and poor psychological and cognitive functioning. Although concerns about food security have historically focused on the provision of adequate calories, today the concept of food and nutrition security recognizes three forms or the triple burden of malnutrition, which includes not only hunger or famine, but also micronutrient deficiencies and overweight and obesity, or overnutrition. Today, overnutrition affects more people worldwide than does undernutrition. As defined by the FAO of the United Nations, undernutrition is typically used to refer to insufficient consumption or use of energy and or essential nutrients which have broader meaning than undernourishment, which typically refers only to inadequate energy intake, chronic hunger. Overnutrition results from an excess intake or imbalance of calories and or essential nutrients relative to need. Overnutrition can have adverse health effects, as of WHO estimates that 815 million people in the world are undernourished, whereas 1.9 billion adults are overweight or obese, with 650 million obese. Prevalence of obesity among adults 18 years of age and older. Obesity is defined as a BMI of greater than or equal to 30 kilograms divided by meters squared. In 2016, 39% of adult men and women in the world were overweight, which were greater than or equal to 25 kilograms divided by meters squared. Currently, it is estimated that 18% of children worldwide are overweight or obese. Even when individuals get enough calories, they may not get all of their required nutrients. A problem Fonzo calls hidden hunger. An estimated 2 billion people around the world suffer from often unseen micronutrient deficiencies, which can increase risk of diseases, infections, and other poor health outcomes. Community initiatives are also being developed that strive to enhance food security and bring more diverse, healthful foods to underserved populations. Some of these programs include Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, which is WIC, National School Lunch Program, NSLP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, also known as SNAP, formerly referred to as the Food Stamp Program, the largest program in domestic hunger safety net. The United States is the largest single donor to global initiatives to reduce malnutrition. Undernutrition as a consequence of food and nutrition insecurity in higher risk areas is most prevalent in children, contributing to a third of all deaths under the age of 5. The two primary indicators of children experiencing undernutrition are stunting and wasting. In children, both conditions can severely and irreversibly impair physical, mental, and emotional development. Although not universally true, stunting is typically caused by chronic nutrient deficiency and or infections, whereas wasting is typically caused by acute food shortages and or infections. Wasting causes a serious loss of muscle mass and is and is a critical concern in children because it dramatically increases a child's risk of disease and death. The WHO estimates that 200 million children are stunted and that over 100 million are wasted as a result of undernutrition. The highest rates of wasting children are found in Southern Asia, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka, where more than 15% of children under the age of 5 are affected and where over half of all children that suffer from wasting worldwide are found. It is estimated that the demand for food will increase by 70% to 100% by 2050. Global population growth, economic development, and environmental pressures all converge to reveal an increasing need to do more with less, and in a better way. A sustainable food system must ultimately manage our natural resources in a manner that will protect our environment and conserve our ecosystems. This requires that we preserve biodiversity as well as water and soil quality and minimize the impact on climate. An ecosystem includes all the organisms living in an area and their interactions with each other and with the physical environment they occupy. This includes not only the plants, animals, and insects we can see, but also microorganisms such as bacteria and fungi in the soil we cannot see. The wide variety of living organisms depicted in the image of a prairie represents the biodiversity within the ecosystem. A sustainable food system ensures food and nutrition security for everyone in such a way that the social, economic, and environmental basis needed to provide for future generations are not compromised. This depends on a safe and secure food supply that also preserves food traditions and is culturally acceptable. It also depends on a strong food industry in terms of experiencing economic growth, preserving agricultural jobs, and providing fair wages, and promoting a healthy, educated, and productive workforce. Sustainable food systems not only are reliant on agriculture and food production, but also are utterly dependent on consumer level behaviors to select sustainable diets and minimize food waste. It is tempting to place the responsibility for achieving sustainable food systems solely on political entities, large agribusiness operations, food companies, and farmers. However, much of the responsibility for achieving a sustainable food supply falls on consumers by making sustainable food choices and habitually consuming sustainable diets. Different foods require vastly different resources for production. Therefore, our food choices affect to what degree these resources are used. The evidence consistently demonstrates that diets higher in plant foods and lower in animal foods are typically more sustainable and healthier than the current United States diet. Plant-based diets generally utilize less land area, water, and energy and produce fewer greenhouse gas emission than do diets that contain higher amounts of animal products, particularly beef and dairy. Livestock is the largest agricultural user of global land resources, accounting for 40% of the habitable land being used to raise animals and about 33% of all cropland being used to produce feed crops for animal consumption. Livestock production also accounts for approximately 60% of all agricultural and 15% of total global greenhouse gas emissions. With the impact meat production has on our environment, it is troubling that global meat consumption is projected to double by 2050. However, it is important to recognize that not all animals raised for food production have an equal impact on the environment. Beef cattle have the largest negative impact on the environment of any type of food. Cutting back on overall meat consumption, but beef in particular, can significantly improve the sustainability of our diet. One way to significantly improve sustainability is to reduce food loss and waste, which includes any food that is lost or wasted from harvest to consumption. Inedible portions of foods are not included. Food losses include losses during harvest, processing, production, and transport. Food waste includes food that is left to spoil or is discarded at the consumer level, including products that are thrown out at the retail level, in grocery stores or restaurants, or in the home. Food losses are higher in developing countries, whereas food waste is higher in affluent countries. It is estimated that food loss and waste removes 1/3 of the mass of food that is meant for human consumption globally, resulting in approximately the same percent increase in energy, water, fertilizer, and land use, and increase in greenhouse gas emissions. This appears to be even higher in the United States, as overeating and food discarded by consumers alone have been estimated to account for 44% of food purchased by consumers. Eating more sustainably to improve health and help meet the increasing global demands for food while also preserving the health of the planet. Eat a plant-based diet with lower meat consumption. Avoid wasting food and overeating. Grow some of your own produce in a garden. Buy local in-season produce. Reduce purchases of ultra-processed foods that increase energy use and greenhouse gas emissions. Consumerism must shift towards more sustainable foods and practices to reduce the environmental impact of our diet. So minimize meat, prioritize plants, grow a garden, avoid food waste, buy local, eat enough, not excess. Global population growth and demand for freshwater resources warrant heightened efforts for conservation and conscientious consumption of water. Clean water is essential for human survival, but people in the developed world often take for granted the water they use for drinking, food preparation, and sanitation. In developing nations, the search for safe drinking water can be a daily crisis. According to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, and its efforts in the Safe Water System, SWS, 780 million people worldwide do not have enough access to improved water sources, and an estimated 2.5 billion people, half of the developing world, lack access to adequate sanitation. Millions of people die each year, most of them children, from largely preventable diseases caused by a lack of access to clean water and proper sanitation. The map shows the global average frequency of fresh water, surface water, and groundwater use that exceeds the rate of its replenishment from 1996 to 2005. Nearly 2/3 of the world's population lives in regions that experience water scarcity for at least 1 month per year. Water shortages may be caused by a variety of factors, including droughts, floods, increased population, and increased demand for or overuse of water. In the southwestern United States, population growth, water use for crop irrigation, and climate change are projected to cause severe water shortages. Fruit and vegetable production have the largest water footprint. The average American family uses 300 plus gallons of water at home per day. Plants may be genetically engineered or modified to enhance the growth or nutritional profile of food crops. Food and food ingredients from genetically engineered plants were introduced into the food supply in the 1990s. Genetic engineering is the process of inserting genes into or modifying the genes of an organism. Such genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, are increasingly common on the shelves of United States supermarkets. They are more restricted in Europe. In the United States, although current federal law does not mandate the labeling of GM foods, the FDA offers guidance to food companies who want to voluntarily label their food as being or not being produced using genetic engineering. The FDA states that there is no information indicating that genetically modified foods differ from other foods in any meaningful way. Fears about the safety of consuming genetically modified foods are largely unfounded, as there is essentially no evidence that they currently pose any health risk. Organically grown food have been produced through approved methods that integrate cultural, biological, and mechanical practices that foster the recycling of resources, promote ecological balance, and conserve biodiversity. Organic diets expose consumers to less antibiotic-resistant bacteria and fewer synthetic pesticides. In addition, organic farming has been demonstrated to have a more positive environmental impact than conventional farming does. However, organic farmers are still allowed to use certain pesticides, many of which have not been well tested. Current evidence does not support any meaningful nutritional benefits associated with eating organic foods compared with conventional foods, and there are no well-powered human studies that directly demonstrate health benefits or disease protection as a result of consuming an organic diet. In addition, organic produce is generally more costly than conventionally grown produce. Studies show that on average, consumers are likely to pay 20% more. The use of the term organic on food labels is regulated by the USDA. Its use on food labels anywhere other than the ingredients listed indicates that the food has been produced through approved methods. For organic farmers to sell, label, or represent their products as organic, farmers and food producers must follow all of the USDA specifications for organic regulations. They can be labeled in four ways: 100% organic, which means it must be 95% organic, made with organic ingredients, which means it is at least 70% organic, specific organic ingredients, which means it is composed of less than 70% organic ingredients. To recap, undernourishment remains a critical issue and challenge in efforts to eliminate hunger and provide food security to all individuals around the globe. The Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, of the United States identifies four dimensions of food security: availability, access, utilization, and stability. Food security is defined as always having physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food that meets dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Nutrition security exists when all people consistently consume food of sufficient quantity and quality in terms of variety, diversity, nutrient content, and safety to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life, coupled with a sanitary environment and adequate health education and care. Food security and nutrition security are inseparable. Thus, the FAO determines that food and nutrition security exists with all people at times have physical, social, and economic access to food, which is safe and consumed in sufficient quantity and quality to meet their dietary needs and food preferences, and is supported by an environment of adequate sanitation, health services, and care, allowing for a healthy and active life. The three forms of malnutrition that are present around the world include undernourishment or hunger, inadequate energy intake, micronutrient deficiencies, and overweight or obesity. Overnutrition affects more people worldwide than does undernutrition. Food insecurity is associated with poverty and unemployment and can increase the risk of both undernutrition and overnutrition because of the lack of access to nutrient-dense foods. Nutrition assistance programs that provide supplemental food to specific populations include the Special Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, the National School Lunch Program, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Undernutrition as a consequence of food and nutrition insecurity in higher risk areas is most prevalent in children and can result in stunting and wasting with impairments in physical, mental, and emotional development. Sustainability means the use of resources at rates that do not exceed the capacity of Earth to replace them. For food, a sustainable system implies safety and security of the food supply, a strong food industry in terms of foods and growth, and at the same time, environmental sustainability in terms of biodiversity, water, and soil quality. Current evidence demonstrates diets that are higher in plant foods and lower in animal foods are typically more sustainable and healthier than the current U.S. diet. A secure and sustainable food system has at its core a safe and sufficient supply of water. global population growth, and demand for fresh water resources warrant heightened efforts for conservation and conscientious consumption to reduce water scarcity. Genetically modified foods are derived from organisms whose genetic material has been modified in a way that does not occur naturally. Genetically modified organisms, GMOs, can have potential benefits as well as risk. Organic is a labeling term that indicates that a food or other agricultural product has been produced through approved methods and follows USDA specifications for organic regulations.